Welcome to The Edge by MGR with your host, David Gill.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Edge podcast by MGR. Your host, David Gill here. I hope everybody is having a fantastic week. As always, I certainly am. This week, as I said on a preview at the end of last episode, we are going to talk a bit about Apple and their new big event, their new announcements, and then we're actually going to talk a little bit about Pinterest. Not something I expected coming into this week, but I saw some stuff that intrigued me from the marketing side, and I thought I would share, and then we might talk some more Amazon towards the end, as we always do. This is almost becoming a mini Amazon podcast at this point. But anyways, those are the main topics for the day, so let's get right into it.
You ain't got no money, I ain't got no time. All these faces looking funny when I'm driving by.
Alright, we're going to start off by talking Apple, and obviously, it's been a week since the announcement at this point, so there's been a lot of talk about Apple, but I wanted to give my 2 cents on everything and just discuss what this kind of means for the company in general moving forward, and maybe what we can expect from them in the future as well. So first off, I wanted to talk about the Apple Card, because I think this got a lot of attention, and probably a lot more so than it really should have. To me, there's not too much to discuss with the Apple Card. It's not really innovative. It's not anything new, not revolutionary, nothing really special. It's just a card made by Apple. To me, it's no different really than the Amazon card, which is pretty popular, than a Walmart card, a Target card, a lot of these store cards that companies try to get you to sign up for. But instead, it's got, Apple's logo on it. It's like this shiny, beautiful looking card, of course, because that's what Apple does. But ultimately, it's just a credit card. That's all it is. It's not anything too special. Even the rewards are pretty average. I wouldn't say they're very great. The interest rate on it is pretty average. So nothing incredibly shocking here on the consumer side, other than... and I'm saying this isn't innovative, but I am saying that as a business move, this will make money for Apple. There are plenty of people who will sign up for it, I'm sure. One, because it's just so they can say they have the Apple Card, because it's a nice looking card. And two, because, lots of people sign up for these cards. Lots of people have the Amazon card. There's a reason why so many stores offer store credit cards, because people sign up for them. And especially in the U.S., Americans have a lot of credit cards, so to add the Apple Card to their collection, I'm sure is not a big stretch. So yeah, I definitely think that they will make money from this. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's another source of revenue for them, and that's going to be kind of the common connection of everything we're discussing today. Everything is kind of a new revenue stream, even though it's not anything that's very innovative or special as far as being new in any way. So yeah, it's just a moneymaker. But to me, it's kind of like if Target, say, didn't have a store card and then they announced, hey, we're offering a new store credit card with these features and these benefits, I don't think anyone would really care. I don't think it would really make much news. But because Apple did it, now it was a pretty big deal. So anyways, I think there's not much to discuss. I think Apple will make some money from it, but that's about it. I don't think there's too much special there. Next up, let's discuss Apple News Plus. So if you listen to my episode, it was a little over a month ago. It was back in February. I previewed the Apple News service, and really, it's kind of what I expected. You don't have too many major newspapers on here. There's no New York Times. There's no Washington Post. There's no really much at all as far as major newspapers go. You have the LA Times, you have the Wall Street Journal, and you have maybe a few others. But it's mostly magazines. So if you're someone who is subscribed to multiple magazines, then this is probably a good service for you. But magazine subscriptions have been dropping for years, and they're trying to find any source of additional revenue they can, and if Apple is able to offer that to them and offer eyeballs to them, then they're gonna take it, a lot of these magazines. And I'm just gonna read off a few of the magazines that are that come with Apple News Plus. There's quite a few larger magazines. There's GQ, Esquire, Rolling Stone, People Magazine. You got a bunch of the kind of entertainment stuff. Then in business and news, politics, whatever you want to call it, you got Time Magazine, The New Yorker, New York Magazine, Vanity Fair, The Atlantic, Bloomberg Business Week. In tech, you've got Wired Magazine, you got Travel and Leisure Magazine, but you kind of get the point. So you got lots of these bigger magazines, but it's funny because they had this kind of slide that was, if you paid for all of these magazines, it would cost you $8,000 a year, and with us, it's only $10 a month. And okay, maybe that's true. Yes, if you paid for all of those magazines, they have I think they said over 300 magazines. But who's reading 300 magazines? So no one's actually paying that amount, and it's not the money that's holding them back. It's the time and the care, because a lot of these magazines are not what I would read. You know what I mean? Okay, I read Wired Magazine, for example, but I don't read Travel and Leisure or Oprah's magazine. But other people who might read Oprah's magazine maybe don't read Wired. So it's not a money factor holding me back from subscribing to other magazines. It's I don't have time to read that many magazines. I'm sure most people don't either. The other problem I see with this is that a lot of these magazines on their websites offer tons of free articles. Pretty much all of them do. They offer most of them offer unlimited free articles on their website, and some have some sort of paywall. It kind of depends. I know Wired has a paywall. Because I subscribe to Wired, but most of these places don't actually have a paywall. Rolling Stone doesn't have a paywall. They just make you subscribe if you want the print edition. So that's a problem also. A lot of these sites already offer tons and tons of free content. So are you going to pay $10 a month to now access some of their more exclusive articles? Maybe you will, but maybe not. I don't know. It depends on how much of a magazine reader you are. Again, like I said, if you're someone who's subscribed to multiple magazines, this is probably a good deal for you. But if you are someone who's not really subscribed to any magazines, or maybe subscribed to one magazine, I don't know if this is really worth it because of all the free content. I think the main thing that Apple's doing is having a place where they put all of this content from all of these magazines together in one spot and making it very easy for you to get it in one place. And they're going to have some algorithms, although they've been saying that they don't want to use a ton of algorithms because they don't want to collect your data. And basically, so their recommendation algorithms, they're going to have them, but they're not going to be that good, which kind of sucks, right? One of the reasons why social media is so addictive and so used is because the algorithms really suck you in, and Apple's algorithms are not going to do that, which is fine, but it kind of limits one of the features of the app that is, the ultimate news source, perfectly custom catered to you. Well, not really, because a lot of it's going to be editors' picks and then just most popular articles of the day, and then some suggestions for you based on what you read. But because they're not using, basically, they're going to use your reading history, but they're not going to collect that data and make it leave your device and then take all the data from all the devices and find behavior patterns across millions of people, and then adjust recommendation algorithms to follow those behavior patterns. That's what every major company does, from social media to even lots of these magazine news sites. They all do this. Apple will not be doing that. They will only be going you'll have an algorithm that's running on your phone, but it is not leaving your phone, if that makes sense. So it's going to be very limited, and they don't have enough data to properly understand behavior patterns. Because yes, you might have behavior patterns, but you could also do sporadic things that the algorithm could then pick up on and think that's your normal behavior, even though it's not. Anyways, I'm getting into the weeds a bit on the algorithm here, but the point is they're going to have a recommendation algorithm, but it's not going to be anywhere near as good as even your average news site's algorithm if you're someone who consistently goes there. But to me, the biggest resistance point is that ultimately they're competing with Twitter and Facebook newsfeed and Reddit and all these other sites that basically aggregate news and other content, obviously, based on user behaviors and interests. And I know that those are not exclusively news sites, and Apple News is going to be exclusively news and journalism, which is good for people who are very, very, very much care about that. But I don't know that most people do, right? There's a reason why more and more people are reporting that they get most of their news from their Twitter feed or from Facebook or from some social media site, right? And I think that's only going to continue. And again, those services are free. This one is $10 a month. So Apple can capitalize on the long tail of this niche group of people who really care about journalism and only want to see a very curated news source, and they read lots of magazines and all that. That's fine, and there's going to be people who love this service. But I don't know how big of a group that is, and I don't know how many people are going to be willing to pay $10 a month for news when really they can get news everywhere and anywhere for free. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. We will see how it goes. I think it's a good service for its kind of niche target audience. I just don't know that it's going to have mass broad appeal for the majority of Apple customers. That's kind of my big takeaway from Apple News Plus. All right, now let's talk about the biggest of them all, Apple TV and Apple TV Plus. So there was not much of a surprise for Apple TV Plus. It's pretty much what everyone expected, right? It's another streaming service boasting its great original content and, just showing you why you should subscribe, why you really, really need this. They tried to make it look ultra premium. I wouldn't expect anything different from Apple. They brought out Steven Spielberg and Oprah and all these big name celebrities, flexing their Apple muscles, saying, yeah, look at all these people we can bring in because we're Apple and we have lots of money. They did leave out one key detail, though. They didn't tell us the price, but I think it's safe to say that it will be in the $10 to $15 a month range. But other than that, I don't know if there's much more to talk about. I mean, it's another premium streaming service that's trying to push its original content. I mean, they showed previews of some of their content. It looks, very high production, high budget stuff. I don't know how much money they spent. I don't know how much money they're going to continue to spend. There's a question of, Apple is obviously Apple has tons of money, right? This is something I was going to discuss after I finished everything, and I think I will finish. Once I finish talking about Apple TV, I will discuss their overall situation. But, Apple has tons of money, so they can afford to spend on all of this original content. The question is it worth it for them? Because it's going to be very expensive. We'll see. But, again, as far as Apple TV Plus, not a whole lot surprising. It's a premium subscription service. That's all it is, really. I don't think it's much different than, Netflix or HBO or anything else, or Showtime. Obviously has a lot less content on it than all of those because it's much newer, but the idea is that they will be adding a lot more. as time goes on, like all of those other streaming services have. Well, HBO wasn't a streaming service, and neither was Showtime, but now they are. And similar to Netflix, they'll be adding more content over time. It's just a question of how much money they're going to spend on making all of this very high production value content, because that seemed like they were only going to have high production value stuff. I didn't see much that looked cheap at all. Obviously, they're not going to show off anything cheap that they made, but Netflix has a lot of high production stuff. They have a lot of kind of cheap stuff too, which is fine. You need that mix. So we'll see what Apple's approach is here, but my guess is that their approach is going to be, we're going to throw a ton of money at this because we can. So now let's talk a bit about the Apple TV app, which is a little bit different. It's where Apple TV Plus will be located, but along with Apple TV Plus, there will be quite a few other things. The Apple TV app was more interesting to me than Apple TV Plus, because it allows you to subscribe to many streaming services, a bunch of TV networks, cable providers, also, iTunes, and it'll let you rent movies and all the kind of stuff that you can do on a normal Apple TV, plus these other things, except now it's in an app, and it's going to be available on all Apple devices, obviously, but then it's also going to be available on Amazon devices, Roku devices, and a bunch of different smart TVs. So this is more interesting to me, just because, they're also going to have premium content for free on a regular basis as an incentive for people to download the app. But the reason it interests me more is because if they succeed with this, they will have created a almost App Store 2.0. It's not going to be quite the same, because obviously the App Store has an inherent monopoly, because it's the only way to get apps on an Apple device, but it still is going to be an App Store 2.0 in the sense that they're going to be able to take a commission on many, many people's content subscriptions. And that's a big chunk of money, even for Apple's standards. And I think that this product, this offering, out of all the things that they presented, was the most enticing for consumers. Definitely, at least to me. Basically, their pitch was, I think their little slogan was something along the lines of all your TV in one place on all your devices, something like that. So you don't need all these different streaming apps. You don't need a cable box. You don't need satellite or whatever you have. You don't need all these different things. You just need the Apple TV app, and you can download it on all your devices. And then all of your, it's going to have sports. It's going to have all your subscriptions. It's going to have all your cable. It's going to have everything all in one place, which I think is enticing. Plus, like I said, some free premium content. They're going to have some free movies and other stuff that they put on there to get people to download the app. So that, the other thing that they're doing is, obviously, because they want to take a commission, all the payments are going through one app. So instead of having a bunch of different subscriptions spread across all over the place, you're going to have one subscription through the Apple TV app, and you can manage them all through there. So all the payments go through the Apple TV app. The app itself is free. That's, they want you to download it. But from there, you can subscribe to Showtime or Hulu or your cable things, whatever. The thing that is not on here is going to be Netflix, obviously, because Netflix doesn't need to give Apple a share, and they don't need Apple to promote their service. They have plenty of subscribers without Apple's help. So they said, no, thank you. We're not going to give you a chunk of our revenue. So that's what interested me the most, because I think it has the most to offer for consumers, while also being a potential huge money maker for Apple. But overall, I kind of was a bit disappointed, or not disappointed, but, not super excited with what I saw from Apple. And I think that was the reaction of a lot of people. Like I said, the card, to me, it's like a department store card, except it's made by Apple. Okay, not a big deal. It's going to make some money for Apple. I'm not sure how big of a innovative product it is for consumers. It's not. It's just another card. So that, there wasn't that much there for me. That's more of a move of Apple saying, okay, we need to add a revenue stream. Then Apple News Plus, like I said, it has a limited audience. I don't know how successful it will be, and it's not. I think it's going to be difficult to compete when news is practically free to get people to pay $10 a month. Again, we'll see. And then Apple TV Plus, okay, it's another subscription service with original content. We've seen that before, nothing new. And then the Apple TV app, which I said is probably the most interesting. But overall, just not a whole lot new or innovative. There's nothing here that they came up with that was any type of new idea. It was mostly Apple saying, we've been promising that we're going to increase our services revenue, our non-hardware revenue, and this is how we're going to do so, right? This is how we're going to finally make a major push into increasing our services revenue from outside of just the App Store, which is where they get most of their services revenue. But overall, to me, this actually felt more like an investor event than it did a consumer event, even though it's supposed to be a consumer announcement event. Just because it felt like Apple saying, hey, I know you guys are worried that the only way we make money is from hardware and that the hardware sales are not growing, like the iPhone in particular. But we've been saying that we can make money in other ways outside of hardware, and now this is how we're going to do it. So look here, we're going to be fine, and we're going to continue to grow, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really feel like a great consumer event because not a whole lot was announced, like I said, that was new and innovative. So overall, I'm a bit, just slightly not that impressed with Apple, to put it that way. And listen, Apple's in a difficult position. And when I say that, I don't mean a position of trying to survive. Obviously, they're one of the wealthiest companies in the world, and they sell some of the best selling products in the world. So they're doing fine. They're not going to go out of business, anything like that. They're doing great, actually, on that front. It's just obviously these companies always need to find a way to grow when you're on the public markets, and when iPhone sales are stalling, and same thing with the Mac sales, same thing with iPad sales, they're not really growing very much. They need to find new sources of revenue, and that's what they're doing. So overall, Apple's in great shape financially, but they need to find more growth sources. That's really what this seemed like today. Hey, we look at these, we have a bunch of new sources of revenue investors. Look at this here. That's what it seemed like to me. I'm not sure what you guys thought. Let me know. But that's all I've got on Apple. We're going to move on now. I spoke longer than I thought I would. But anyways, let's move on because I wanted to talk about Pinterest, as I said earlier, because they are getting a little more interesting to me. I have some Pinterest interest. No pun, actually pun very intended. So Pinterest is trying to majorly ramp up their ad platform. They just went public, so obviously, now the pressure is doubly down on keeping their revenue growing. Is that doubly down? Is that a term? Anyways, but that's not the reason I'm mentioning this. I wanted to discuss this because as someone who lives in the, day-to-day of marketing budgets, and where, I deal with a lot of companies and basically decisions on where to put their money and put their ad spend. Pinterest is very much the forgotten middle child. The main focus of people who are in charge of ad budget seems to be obviously mostly on the major platforms, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, depending if it's B2B, LinkedIn, etc. And then a lot of people also try to find the, spot the early up and comer that no one's heard of yet, and they can, get in on the ground early and really grow with that platform. That's kind of the two approaches. Pinterest is neither of those things. They have 250 million users, which is a decent amount, but nothing compared to Facebook or obviously its sister Instagram, or it's less than Twitter, So it's very much kind of the forgotten middle child in all of this. But Pinterest interests me, and I'm not trying to say a pun, but it just interests me, because they potentially have a lot more to offer now, and they're continually offering more than they ever have before. What's unique about Pinterest is that much of the time spent by users on their platform is on doing, product research, and kind of wish lists. It's very much I'm looking at a lot of stuff that I want to buy. I might not buy it yet, but I'm thinking about it. I'm making, if you don't use Pinterest, basically you pin things, and basically you make what's called boards. And so you can make, like, a common example is like, my dream home board, and it's got a list of a bunch of, like, stuff that you want in your ideal dream home. And you add the kitchen countertop that you want, and the sink that you want, and you add the living room couches that you want, that type of thing. And it's like my dream home, and you basically pin those things onto that board, and you can make as many boards as you want. So that's how the app works, or the app and website works. So because it's kind of a very unique thing, in that a lot of people use it for stuff that they want to buy, and to do research on things that they want to buy. It's very much the social buying network, more so than even Instagram, really. I mean, people, Instagram is pushing for this more, and I discussed this a bit last week, but I think Pinterest is even a more purchase-heavy environment, or buyer-centric environment than even Instagram is. So that's the unique thing that Pinterest has to offer. The other thing is that they have tons of user behavior pattern data. So with that, they have the potential to create algorithms that can predict someone's purchase very early in the process. So if they know that, basically, if they have tons of data on tons of people who have, say, pinned certain items, and when they pin certain items, it means they're very likely to also pin, like, a good example is, say, dream kitchen, right? Okay, if you're assembling your dream kitchen on Pinterest, and you pin a sink and a countertop and some cabinets or whatever, it's very likely that you will also pin a fridge. And now an advertiser who is selling refrigerators, right? Maybe Samsung's new smart fridges, they want to sell it to this person. Now, when that person has pinned all those other things, and then they start doing searches for refrigerators, or even before they do searches for refrigerators on Pinterest, just when they're scrolling through Pinterest, they start getting ads for this beautiful refrigerator that's going to match all the other things that they put on their dream kitchen wish list. And now they're going to say, oh, that's actually a really nice fridge. And then they pin that too. So that's kind of the idea there. And like that, there's really endless possibilities. But Pinterest has the data to build a platform like that. And that's why it's so... there's so much potential there. The competition for advertisers to reach customers earlier and earlier in the buying process is growing, because if you're just advertising to them when they are already deciding to buy, normally they've decided who they're going to go with normally, or a lot of times. So you want to catch them very early in that process. And Pinterest has a chance to create a fantastic ad platform just for that, for capturing people very early in the buying process. So that's why I wanted to discuss Pinterest a little bit. And also, as of right now, because like I said, they are the forgotten middle child, and I think they will continue to be for the foreseeable future, just because they're nowhere near as big user-wise as other platforms. The cost of ads on Pinterest is not that high, so you can potentially get cheap ads as far as the price goes that convert very highly and are able to reach people very early in their buying decision process. So that is why Pinterest piqued my interest this week, and I will be keeping an eye out on it. And I suggest everyone who is a marketer or advertiser or anything like that, pay attention to Pinterest too. All right, I wanted to wrap up the show just by discussing this little piece, or not little piece, but this great piece made by Bloomberg. I saw it yesterday actually, and I thought it was pretty good. It was just a breakdown of all of Amazon's numbers so that you can get an idea of how big the company is and where their revenue streams comes from. It's obviously very helpful if you're in the e-commerce or retail space to get an idea of where they're dominating, where they're not dominating, and where they have a lot of room to grow. I'll put the link so that you can see it. I'm not going to go through all the numbers. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff, but it's kind of a visualization. It's not like an Excel sheet or anything, so don't worry about that. But the thing that interested me, a few things. This is basically their 2018 end of year numbers. So these numbers will obviously be very different this year. First of all, digital advertising revenue, $7.4 billion. I've discussed this before. I think that number will go up a lot in the coming years. They're very much going all in on creating their ad platform, and I agree with them, and I think that they're one of the underrated ad platforms as well, because a lot of people don't think of Amazon as an advertiser, as an ad platform like Facebook or Google, for example, but they very much are. Some other quick numbers: they have 100 million paid Prime subscribers, which is obviously incredibly valuable. That's one of the reasons why so many people choose to sell on Amazon, because you get access to 100 million people who are very loyal customers, and people who are willing to pay that $120 a year subscription are also very likely to have more discretionary income as well to spend on things. But what interested me the most was that as far as overall sales, I think a lot of people think of Amazon as this massive behemoth. And as far as e-commerce, they are. Like I said, they control half of all e-commerce sales in the U.S. But as far as all retail sales in the U.S., they are only at 7.7%, which means there is a ton of room to grow. As 7.7% market share is very small. That's less than Walmart. And they have so much room to grow. I'm sorry, I said very small relative to obviously the overall market share. 7.7% is a huge amount of money, obviously. I didn't mean it to say it like that. But the point is that there's a huge amount of growth potential here that Amazon still has themselves, which means all e-commerce still has itself, and all e-commerce sellers have themselves. Because even if Amazon is able to grow to, say, 15%, say double their current, which is a lot, that's a ton of money. That is literally hundreds of billions of dollars that will then flow in to e-commerce sellers as well. So that's why there's still a massive opportunity in e-commerce that is not being tapped and will continue to grow. And the people that realize this will build very successful companies. And if you want to be one of those successful companies, we're going to transition into a quick shout out to MGR. We help people build an amazing e-commerce presence both on their own sites and on Amazon, and we help people grow their sales. We help grow businesses. That's what we do, and especially with e-commerce and Amazon, we can grow your sales. That's what we do. We are very good at it. If you just want a quick consultation, it can be a quick email, a quick call, whatever you want, and get in on this wave of e-commerce growth before it's too late and ride the Amazon wave. You can go to mgredge.com/AMZ, a very simple link, mgredge.com/AMZ, and it'll take you to a nice little page where you can read about some of the services we offer, and then decide if you want to fill out a form and get a quick consultation. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you listened all the way through if you're at this point. And if you did, if you could leave a review, it means a lot to us. It really, really helps us out, and it helps us expand the reach of the podcast and helps us get more great guests as well. I want to start getting more guests. Karen Howland, by the way, if you didn't listen to that one and you're a e-commerce Amazon seller, you definitely should listen to that one. The title is $125 million Fund Managing Director on How to Grow a Consumer Brands. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week.